Good evening. This is Gloria Taylor Brown with the 5th edition of Stepping Into Ourselves, a gathering of priestesses, and I'm delighted this evening to welcome Lorraine Schein, who is a New York poet and a writer, and she's had poetry in Sage Woman, Witches and Pagans, Vallum. I don't know how to say that. Is it Vallum? V-A-L-L?
That's correct. That's
okay.
Correct.
Hotel Amerika, Women's Studies Quarterly, The Wee Moon Calendar, and New Letters. Her fiction and humor are included in the anthologies Alice Redux, an anthology about Alice in Wonderland and the Unbearables. She's currently working on a graphic novel. In addition, we have a very prestigious woman, Jade River, who is the co-founder of the Reformed Congregation of the Goddess, and she international, which is the first legally incorporated tax-exempt religion serving women's spiritual community. She's the creator of the Women's Theological Institute, the first organization to nationally offer in-depth training for women seeking training in goddess religion and for some of its graduates. She's also written several books, including Tying the Knot, a gender-neutral guide to handfastings or weddings for pagans and goddess worshippers. In addition, she has been in a number of publications, including our primary publication, which is Stepping Into Ourselves, an anthology of writings on priestesses. And one of the things that Goddess Inc. is offering is for everybody who is watching the show or coming to see it, is a 15% discount if you buy through the Goddess Inc. Website. Yes, I know you can buy it on Amazon cheaper, but it's better if you buy it from Goddess Inc. because, after all, let's support our sisters. They paid a lot of money to have this thing published.
It disappeared.
There's 50 authors in here. It's a great book, and it's got lots and lots of information that, frankly, just think of it. So I want to welcome Jade and Lorraine. Lorraine is from New York City, and Jade is from somewhere in Wisconsin. I wasn't quite clear. Madison?
Madison.
Madison, up where the university is, right?
My boyfriend is from Madison.
I know it's a hotbed of liberals up there in Madison, Wisconsin, according to my Minneapolis husband. He used to go there and date people a long time ago. But I wanted to start tonight with the question that I always start with, and Lorraine, I'm going to let you go first, is what drew you to the path of the priestess?
I wouldn't consider myself a priestess per se, but I have always been very interested in women's spirituality, starting around my college days and maybe before. And I was very interested in women's writing and feminist writing that was coming out at that time. And that included the women's paganism and things like that. So I wouldn't quite say I'm a pagan, but I'm definitely a pagan sympathizer. And I'm not a priestess, but I'm very interested and involved in women's spiritual writing.
So who would you say is your favorite women's spiritual writer?
Well, there's a number of them. Of course, Emily Dickinson can be considered a spiritual writer, even though, she was not of that time period. And then there are so many in the pagan movement and the feminist movement, like Judy Graham and many others. I mean, there's so many that have really influenced me. And unfortunately, I think nowadays there's been a forgetting to some extent of their writing, or maybe an eclipsing of their writing, not among women so much, but I wonder if their writing will persist in the wider culture. I hope so in the future. because our time has somewhat passed,
So what I would ask, since you seem to be pretty much of an expert on this, is if it wouldn't be too much trouble at some point, if you could give us a list of people that you recommend we read. Because a number of our people are young and up and coming, and some of us are old and out and going, but I'm always looking for more books. I'll guarantee you that. I only have a few thousand. So if you wouldn't mind at some point giving us a list like that, I'd love to have it in the membership list, membership site, so that we can have other people look at those books and read them. And yeah.
Well,
so,
I can't do it off the top of my head, but I could definitely compile something for
that would be fabulous.
The writers who have influenced me, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. And just give me the name and the author, and I can go from there.
Sure.
And Jade, I'm
going to. I don't know how much the younger generation is aware of these women, and the anthology certainly is a great step forward, because it actually has gotten these works into print for future generations who may not be aware of this, and I think that's very important. So, and for the wider culture to be aware of this also.
Great, thank you. So Jade, now I know you're not going to tell me you're not a priestess. If you do, I'll come on there. So tell me what got you started.
In fact, my article, my piece in the journal is called 3 Times a Priestess. What originally got me started was I was drawn into women's spirituality because I was looking for what to do with my psychic skills. My whole family was psychic, all the women in my family. And so I was looking for something to do with those and found a coven and was ordained by them. And then later formed the Reformed Congregation of the Goddess and was ordained by them. And then even later than that, Z Budapest recognized me as an elder priestess, and I was ordained by Z. So I'm 3 times a priestess.
Being ordained by Z is quite high praise.
I think so too.
Yeah, she is a task mistress. So it says you're co-founder of the Reformed congregation. Who was your
That's right.
Who was your co-founder with that?
Lynn Levy is the other. Lynn Levy is the other person that did that with me, and we started by publishing a paper called Of a Like Mind, which was a women's spirituality paper, and we did that for 18 years. And Lynn was the editor, and she and I co-founded.
I think I sent them some work a long time ago. So that sounds very familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you had a magazine for a while too, didn't you?
We didn't. We just had a paper. It was like, but it was like a magazine. It was a newspaper format, but it read like a magazine.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, what drew you? Were you from Madison, or what drew you to that area?
Oh no, I'm from Kentucky originally. I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, and I moved here about 30 years ago. And I moved here because I'd had this interesting experience where I had told a couple of my friends that if I just had a little money, I'd organize for the goddess. And I went into my house right after having said that, and my phone was ringing. It was my mother calling me to tell me that my grandmother, with whom I'd had a big values conflict, had just died and had left me a 3.5 carat diamond ring, some nuclear power plant stock, and a mink coat.
Wow.
And I decided that was the answer because I had just said I would organize for the goddess if I just had a little money. And here was a little money. So Kentucky, I didn't feel was a very supportive place to do that kind of work. And so I started looking for where a lot of pagans and free thinkers were in Madison. It was either one coast, the other, or Madison.
Right.
And I came to Madison.
Well, fabulous. And you've been there how long?
30 years now.
Wow. That's a lot of cold winters.
I was going to say, that's a lot of cold weather.
As you can hear by my voice, I'm from the South, and anything that looks white had better be beach sand in my life. So thank you for that. And so when you're considering the idea of being a priestess and carrying that forward. What would you say is the most important aspect? I mean, you've created these institutes, you've created this congregation, you've written these books, you have this music. What is it that you feel is the most important thing, or the most important lesson that you can offer for us for carrying it forward for anyone who might be also wanting to build a place for the goddess?
Well, one of the things that I think is really important is to have some sort of a calling to it. I know that that sounds, like traditional religion, but what has kept a lot of the women that I know going forward is that they felt drawn to do this kind of work. And if you have that, that will keep you through some of the hard times. Working as a priestess is not always, easy or simple. A lot of times it's taking out the trash, that kind of thing. So one of the things that the Women's Theological Institute did was recognize that there are a lot of different ways to priestess. That you can priestess by doing ritual, you can priestess by doing scholarship and writing, you can priestess by being somebody who takes care of the things that we need, like, where is the food going to come from, that kind of thing. You can priestess by creating art. So there's many, many ways to priestess, and we try to acknowledge all of them, because if we actually are going to have a women's spiritual culture, we're going to need all those people. And so we need some of those people who do that in a sacred way, and that's kind of how we consider priestessing.
Lovely. One of the things that's one of my goals is to start the Goddess Ranch, which is basically a retirement home for those of us who will not fit into the standard establishments, shall we say. And that's my goal within the next 5 years, to have that created and operating, because I figure by then I'll need it. Raven and I have talked about this, my friend Raven and I have talked about this for probably 10 or 15 years now. And we're very clear that we don't know where it is, but we know what it is. And it's a place that has sustainable gardens and places where people can live in their own little houses and have their own little cats and dogs and whatever they want to have in the house with them, and then have a communal space where they can come together and eat and share and be with others and have their books. We require libraries. As I said, my bookshelves are all full, so yeah, and they still come in. The books still come in. So I'm always, that's why I ask Lorraine, to recommend some books for us, because I'm always looking for more books. So Lorraine, you have been basically an observer of women's spirituality for some time. What do you see as, looking at it from Emily Dickinson, who was mid-1800s to now, what do you see as traits and patterns that have occurred?
Well, poetry was always very important in the feminist movement, and I think it has that spiritual component that drove it forward, and in that way I think perhaps I'm a priestess in that way. Mm-hmm. As Jade mentioned, I did participate sometimes among pagan festivals and such, but I wouldn't exactly call myself a pagan sympathizer, you might say. So and I wonder if that stopped for now, if we had a kind of utopian vision in those days for feminism, and we have achieved some things politically, but I wonder if there's yet more to be done, and if poetry can continue to be a driving force for that.
Well, based on the Hobby Lobby decision from the Supreme Court, I would say there's a long way to go.
Yes,
so,
definitely. Unfortunately, yeah.
So, not to get too political tonight, but vote the bastards out. So, yeah. I think that we all have to look at how we live in the world, and if poetry can impact the world, if it can, if we look at poetry, I mean, going back to my dear Kentucky friend Normandy Ellis, who translated the Egyptian Book of the Dead and into the Book of Coming Forth by Day is what her title is, Awakening Osiris. That is basically poetry, and it was a way of dealing with the issues of the day in a way that created a container that it could be dealt with by individuals. So, I mean, even if you look at the Bible, particularly in the Old Testament, much of the Old Testament is very poetic, and the Song of Solomon, for heaven's sake, is all poetry. So you have these things that were ways of carrying knowledge and information, and if we look at the bards, I mean, I'm sure Jade can talk about this even better than I can. The bards of of Europe in the Middle Ages, they carried knowledge, and without their songs, much of our current wisdom and knowledge about what happened before would be totally gone.
Of course, poetry carries spiritual knowledge. I can recommend, recently I read a poem by Denise Duhamel in an issue of the American Poetry Review. It was a wonderful feminist poem. I would recommend, I don't have the title of it right now, but I can, list it when I give you that list.
Sure.
Also, when in my time there were so many feminist literary magazines that drove the ideas of women's spirituality, and unfortunately now there are very few of them left, and I think this reflects somewhat how we really haven't achieved all of our goals, even maybe also the utopian goals that perhaps are the most difficult to achieve. So I think that is a reflection of where we are in terms of the feminist movement.
Yeah, one of my goals is to actually start a magazine that will be part of this program, which is about the priestesses. And in order to have a venue for us to be able to carry interviews and programs, and because we now have the opportunity, a magazine is not a piece of printed paper anymore. A magazine is a living being with video and song and everything else in it. So, something like that. So, Jade, I'd like to go to you on the comment I made about the bards, because I do know that I am stepping in your territory when I start talking about that.
Well, a lot of the history that we have and the things that we know, you're right, does come through song. And I am a folk singer first. I do sing goddess music now, but as a folk singer, I know a lot of history, and I know it because of the music. That's where I learned those kind of things. And I think it's very important that we find ways today to carry that forward, so that we know about our history now through things like our poetry and our music and things of that nature, because that's really important, I think, for us to be aware of the things that we're doing. And we have perfect venues for that by expressing ourselves in those modalities.
So maybe you would have some singers that you think we should listen to? Besides yourself, obviously.
I really like Lorena McKenna, and I like several other people, and I probably would need the same thing. Give me a chance and I'll write some of them down. Goddess music is kind of hard to find, so you have to search around a little to find those kind of things. But
why is it hard to find, do you think? Yeah.
I think not too many women have sung that kind of music. There's a few, but they're not that common.
I like Lisa Thiel's music.
I do like her music too.
And let's see, Troika. I like their music as well. And there's several others that have been around for a while. Who was that woman that we had at Women of Wisdom? Big name. And she was kind of funny. She came to one of our Women of Wisdom meetings, and we were singing songs, and she says, "Don't you people know any songs that have more than 2 lines?"
That's what I say about the recording that I made. I said they are long songs with words. They're not poems. I wanted to hear long songs with words because, I think that's where we teach each other things that we can't teach in other ways. Chants are good, and if you're trying to induce a trance state or something like that, chanting is excellent. But if you want to tell a story, it's the songs that tell the stories.
Yeah. So, okay, blending this together, we have song, we have poetry. We have, that as the way of carrying forward the knowledge, the wisdom, the essence of who we are and what we have come here to do. So, poetry in a way is simply the words of a song without music, and song is poetry set to music. So, Lorraine, do you have any comments about, I'm trying to draw this together, and I want them to see that, in many ways, you two, I think it's marvelous that you came on together, because in a way, you're like 2 sides of the same coin, and you express this together in a different way than anybody else we have that's going to be on here. It's just one of the things I love about this show is that we've got so many different expressions of what a priestess looks like, because nobody is like anybody else. If we had Jade's co-founder on here, I guarantee you that her story would be completely different. So Lorraine, that comment about poetry and song carrying us forward, is there a way that we can deepen our knowledge and wisdom with poetry, writing poetry? What would you recommend?
I would recommend, of course, reading poetry. Writing poetry. I've been writing poetry since I was a child. So it came very naturally to me. Perhaps that's the spiritual component that was in me naturally, but when women organize, those are ways that they can both politically advance as well as spiritually. I don't know what the younger generation is going to do, if they're going to forget everything that happened before, or are they going to be able to pick up where we left off. Maybe they will be able to because of anthologies like these. I hope so for the future. I also started reading the tarot when I was in college, and some of my poems are about the tarot.
No, well, that is a very ripe and deep subject for someone who has almost 100 decks sitting in her house.
Well, that's very deeply connected to spirituality for women, I believe, because it's outside of the mainstream religions, and it relies on intuition, and especially people like Jade who have special gifts probably in order to do that. I do believe that some people have more capacity for psychic ability than others, though we might all have a certain amount of it. But I think some people are more gifted, though. So
I think some people are more gifted, and I think some people have spent more time training their gift.
That too, yes.
My grandmother began teaching me how to read palms when I was 5. So, that's...
In what way do you mean?
She taught me how to read palms when I was 5.
Okay. Just to read them or to interpret them?
To interpret the meanings of the lines in your palms.
That's pretty good, yeah.
When I was 7, she introduced me to playing cards and tarot cards.
Oh, wow.
So
you got an early education.
Right. So based on that, I began working in that area much earlier than someone who walked into a New Age bookstore and found a set of tarot cards 5 years ago. You know,
definitely. You had a head start.
yeah, and you know, whether I was more psychic or less psychic than the one who walks in for, you know, I have one client who's just discovering her abilities. You know, it's always gone on, but she's just being willing to admit that she just might possibly be a little bit psychic. And you know, so her exploration is much newer. It's an opportunity. So anyway, somebody's having trouble getting in.
I think those abilities are repressed in our culture, also in men. I think they're repressed even more. So that's another aspect that people come to explore at different times in their lives. What do you think, Jade? So,
I kind of think most people are psychic, but a lot of the time they don't know what their psychic skills are. I think psychic, most of the time when you ask somebody if they are psychic, they'll say, no, I just don't hear any voices, but I do see those lights around people. So I think we think psychic is something someone else has, not what we have most of the time. And I think there's a whole lot of different ways to be psychic. I have one friend who can put her hands on a car and say, oh, it's the carburetor. You know,
she's a
I need her.
She's a door psychic, yeah. And there's a lot of different ways to be psychic. And I think if you like sit down with somebody and they say, I'm not psychic, and then you say, well, how about this, or you know, do you see patterns? Do you hear voices? Do you see lights? Before you get to the end of a list of 20 of them, they'll be identifying with one or two of them. So I kind of think that it's mostly that we don't know that those kind of things are psychic, and we've been taught to transfer that into rational thought. Like we have a psychic thing, and then we can't say, oh, I have this psychic hit. So then we have to say, oh, I think this, and now I'm going to give a rational reason why I think that.
That's
so
interesting.
I kind of think that, we all are, it's just different.
Well, don't you have classes in your at your mother house that you actually teach in developing psychic or developing? I was looking at your website earlier, and it seems to me there was something in there.
Yes, that's one of the things that in the Women's Theological Institute, one of what we consider our core curriculum is psychic skills. And so we teach goddesses, magic, psychic skills, environment, things like that are our core curriculum. And so we try to work with women to get them to realize what their psychic skills are, and then to make them more accessible to them to use.
So if someone listening to us was on the fence here about whether or not they are psychic or whether they're just hearing things, what would you tell them? What would you say?
What would I say? Well, I would kind of talk to them about what their experience was. I think that's one of the big questions of our life is, what is reality and what is illusion? And I think one of the most important things to do with our psychic skills is to figure out when it's correct. One of the things I advise people to do is, like, when they think they're having a psychic experience, write it down and see if what they believe actually comes to pass, or if they're reading their cards or something. Write it down and see what, remember what you said, and then see what's true. And after a while, you get a sense of what's true. You begin to notice, and have a feeling, oh, I have this experience, and I believe that that's really true. And over time, I've developed the ability to tell what's true for me. Some of my psychic stuff, I'm wrong, and I've grown to know that. Like, I think all planes will crash. So if I really think that a plane will crash, it's probably not true, which is kind of funny because I fly a lot, so I have to talk myself out of my psychic intuition that isn't really psychic that the plane will crash.
Sometimes it's a fear, a fear instead of an intuition or something.
Yeah, my intuition is wrong in that, but I know it. I've worked with it enough to know, what my true intuitions are. And so I think anybody can do that. If you think you know something, start a journal, write it down, and then look back and see how accurate you were and in what way you were accurate.
And I used to keep a tarot journal, right? So.
Yeah, one of the ways I learn new tarot decks is I do a 78-day journal.
That's awesome.
And basically I draw one card for every day, and everything relates to that card that day, and I don't get to put death in the tower away. I have to go through it.
That's funny, yeah.
Sometimes I don't want to do some of those cards, you know.
I understand. Sometimes it's like, let's draw another card for today.
Yeah, I used to do that. I would do over a reading if I didn't like it. So.
Well, as you know, but whenever I was learning a new deck, that would be my methodology, and I had to learn that card, and so everything that day related to that card. And I would draw the cards first thing in the morning, and I'm going, I don't know if I want to do this today. I'm really busy. And it's like, you don't get a choice, because I would, you know, sometimes I'd cheat and put it back at the back of the cards. It still was that day, you know.
Yeah.
And sometimes you draw a card that you think was good, and it wasn't so good whenever you went through it, you know. So, you know, that's different. Different people, different things, and different opportunities. Lorraine, I know that you said that you might need to leave us here a little earlier than, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to read your poetry.
Okay. I have 2 tarot poems.
Oh, lovely.
The first I wrote during a period of unemployment. It's called The Hanged Woman. Fired from my day job, I released the blazing world and found myself attached here. Hanging from the crescent moon's bright branch, I dangle over your world, watching you scorn or ignore me as you hustle past, busy as small conflagrations. But I am busy too, slipping all knots as I liquefy, transforming into water. My power heels fallen off long ago. My cell phone dropped uncharged. My minutes unbought. I swing from this silver crown, all connections lost, except my one leg bound by paradox, my other secured to freedom.
Lovely. The hanged man or the hanged woman is an interest. That's another one you sometimes. I've spent years with the hanged man. So. Oh yes, patience.
Literally.
Literally. So it's like, oh, this whole year is, yes, going through these last couple of years with my husband have been very much about transformation and waiting. So yeah, I understand that. And did you have another one you wanted to share with us as well?
This is another tarot card poem. It's about how we can possibly enrich the world through paganism, or as Jade has done, through getting in touch with our psychic abilities. It's called Occult Malfunction Reboot Procedure. When tarot cards fail and the high priestess is brought low, blue robes swelling like waves, tumbling from her throne that teeters atop the tower's edge, while the magician sinks, flailing his sword as he drowns in the moon's dark sea, amid his floating cup and white lilies, beneath nightmare wolves' howls and psychotic crabs clawing ashore. When the brave lady tames the fierce lion, but cannot save the hanged man from himself, and the star's light is dimmed, restrained by shadows cast from the devil's chains, then the gypsies close up their shabby shops and turn off the red neon signs, now bewildered by their clients' fate lines, They return the $10 reading fee, explaining they can no longer see. Even their crystal balls are now cloudy. When the rooms are a ruin and prognostication by stars, entrails, clouds, leaves, and birds all fail, then we must reconstitute the storm for the homeless last fay, confabulate with them to restore the lost chaos, invite the young sibyls from their caves, listen to what they say, ask them to show their unburned prophetic books to us, turn off all cell phones and electronic devices, light candles for all dead and future goddesses, coax the silenced waters of Delphi's mountain to flow with cryptic answers again.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
The last part is about the Oracle of Delphi, when it was the last days. They were burning the prophetic books, and the Romans were burning them, and one of the sibyls offered the last book that was not burned to the Roman king. So this all happened. So.
Yeah, I have actually on Facebook I have a article about the Oracle of Delphi, and we did when Nikki Scully and I did Becoming an Oracle. That was one of our oracles that we went through. So. Which was it was an around the world. We started in Egypt and we went all the way around the world, and then we ended back in Egypt. So, and it was quite an interesting experience, let's say. So Jade, as you are crafting in some ways younger lives, let's say, some of them probably not so young, how does that work for you? I mean, how do you choose your students, or do your students choose you? How does it work?
Most of the time they choose us. The programs that we have are actually modeled on the ways that we think women learn when they're very self-directed. So if, for example, there was something that was asking you to learn about 10 goddesses, that would be pretty much all it would say. And then how you do that would be up to you. So we've had women that researched the goddesses and found their symbols and made a quilt with 10 goddess symbols, or flashcards, goddess on the front, info on the back, that kind of thing. Each woman, jewelry, pottery, each woman makes her own response then to, what it is that she finds out, or poetry. We actually have quite a bit of poetry or story writing, that kind of thing. So each woman crafts her own school, basically, because it's very self-directed. So what the Women's Theological Institute offers is a framework and then recognition. One of the things that happens is a lot of the time goddess women are doing a lot of work, but there's no one around for them to say, wow, that's a really good job. And that's part of what WTI, Women's Theological Institute, that's part of what we hope it does, is provide a framework so that you become a well-rounded goddess woman, and also then be recognized by other people that are doing the same kind of work. So that's kind of how it is. So it isn't so much what we tell them to learn, it's what they want to learn, and we give them the structure that allows them to do it.
Lovely. That sounds very interesting. It's very interactive and very enlivening. I like that. I think maybe it'd be better if some of our schools were a little more like that.
That's true, because children have different modes of learning that are stronger than others. It should be.
Right.
Well, because we recognize all different types of priestessing. We have a path called creatix. So if you're a writer or an artist or, a sculptor or something like that, and you want to respond in a way that a creatrix would respond, you can do that. Or if you're a healer and you want to study 10 healing goddesses, you can do that. Or if or the psychic skills that accompany healing. You can do that. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. And what we want to do, I always say, we want you to do what you want to do, and then we want to give you credit for it. So it's really structured in a way so that you can model a program based on your own interests and your own skills and what you want to come out with when you're done. Some women like to do things that they have never done before and challenge themselves, but some people are like, they're a nurse and they want to further their healing by learning different healing modalities. Mm-hmm. So it's really up to the women themselves to construct the program that they want to have.
Now, do you ask them to construct it ahead of time and say, this is what I'm going to do, or do you say, this is what I want you to explore, and just allow them to construct it however they wish?
Well, there's a framework, so mm-hmm. it'll give you, like you have to have certain things that you've done. So like the goddess component says study 10 goddesses. So you have to show that you did that in some way. And do you have to come up with it before? Not exactly. You have to come up with it before you're done, but you don't have to know what you're going to do from the very beginning. You have to know what you're going to do by the time you're done. So you might not know which goddesses you want to study. They may call to you. Just when you decide that you're done with one, another one may call to you, and that's fine. But if you decide, okay, from the very beginning, I'm going to study these 10 goddesses, that's fine too. So we have a way, if you're a person who likes a lot of structure, you can do it that way. If you're a person who prefers to work basically in an intuitive mode and wait to see, what calls to you, you can do that too.
So primarily is your teaching and training in Madison, or is it across the internet?
We do have an internet school that does the same thing, and we also have weekend programs that happen in several locations around the country. And in fact, anytime there's 6 women who want to do the program over the weekend, we'll set up a weekend program for them. And that we do in person, and we send an advisor, which is one of our graduates from the program, to come there and do the program with them. So we have both alternatives.
Oh, fabulous. So both in-home and in place, I guess you
That's
would
right.
say. Lorraine, I wanted to come back to you for just a moment here. It is 6:40, and you had said that you might need to leave 40 minutes after the hour, which for you is quite late.
Are you going to be taking questions?
Yes, I am in just a minute. If you want to stay for that, I want to offer.
I think I will stay.
All right.
For a while, anyhow. Yeah.
All right. I just wanted to honor your time. I always want to honor anybody's time because I really want people to honor mine, frankly. So I think that's important. Okay, well then I would like to open it up a little bit here and see if we have anyone who would like to ask some questions. It looks like Amy, do you have a question? Is that Amy, do you have a question? You're unmuted if you'd like to ask the question.
Oh, hi, thank you. Actually, I was just offering some information on musicians that I know of. Shelley Graff and Kay Gardner and Carolyn Hillier.
Okay, that's great. That's fabulous. Thank you. We appreciate that. So,
thank you for all that you're doing.
Are you a musician?
No, but I've been in a women's singing circle that I greatly enjoy, and I've been introduced to these musicians and find it very healing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And let's see, I've got some other questions here. Well, Amy, I thank you for showing up and thank you for your contribution.
Thank you for all that you're doing.
Let's see, Jill Siren Peterson? Can you hear me? Jill? Hello? I can hear her. I'm just not sure if she can hear me. All right, we're going to mute Jill back. And let's see, I saw one more question. Diane Perot. Diane, did you have something to add or a question you would like to ask?
Well, I'd love to hear about the writing, and I do. I think it was own one night, on her night, she said, when you're creating, then you are in connection with the divine. And I loved hearing that. So when you're writing, Lorraine, or as you're supporting these women through the school to access their creativity, it's just such a way to open that divinity within them. It's such a reflection of the work. And then I wanted to add a musician, Jennifer Berezin, who did Returning. And so she's done women's, I think, goddess.
Oh, yeah. I think we had Jennifer a couple of years at Women of Wisdom. She was fabulous.
Yeah.
And okay, so thank you very much. Did you have a question for either of our speakers?
I'll go to the question I had before about the altars. Like, how do you access your, like, Lorraine, how do you get ready to write?
I don't know how it works. I've been writing poetry since childhood. Sometimes it comes to me in a dream. Sometimes it's just like hearing words in your head sometimes. So I think it's a mystic, poetry arises from a mystical impulse. And traditionally it's been a way sometimes to connect with the divine. It is for me. I don't know if it's that way for every other poet, but there's always that connection with the divine in poetry, and it's a mystery. Poetry is a mystery school. So, and I don't have any special way to get ready to write, though a lot of it happens at night or when I first awake remembering a dream. So
I dream copy, advertising copy.
Are you a copywriter?
Yeah.
All right, that'll do it.
Yeah, understand. So Jade, Diane's question is about altars. She's very interested in altars. So I would presume you are an altar builder. I may be presuming too much, but
no. I have a lot of different altars. You know, I have a personal altar that I work with, and you know, here we do have a mother house for the Reformed Congregation of the Goddess, and we have several altars here. And one is for healing and transitions, and one is a seasonal altar that one of our members changes for us all the time. And we bring things to our altars when we do that. And you know, it's nice to have a place that you don't have to unpack and repack the altar every time. So we've got an ongoing altar that we've had for, I think, about 15 years now. You know, that just changes all the time here, which is really awesome.
We have participated, Raven and I have participated in the Altered Space at the Oregon Country Fair, which is Nikki Scully's offering to the fair to provide a sacred space, which we actually transformed what was previously called Needle Park into an altar.
Wow.
And provided healings, and it's about a 40-foot long space that we provide that just becomes an incredible altar and has all kinds of offerings there. And you know, the idea of holding that space as an altar. I mean, in every room in my house there is a space that is an altar. I'm sitting here looking at the altar that's on the top of one of my cabinets here that has feathers and photos and Ganesha and lions and tigers and Isis and crystal balls and everyone, and oil lamps from Egypt. You know, it's a little tiny space, but it's got a number of things, and I can look over there, and those different aspects actually support me in doing my work. Even when I'm doing my work, which is mundane, not goddess work or priestess work, because I know that I'm in a space that is held sacred. I think that's one of the reasons why altars are so important. I mean, we are natural altar builders. Don't you both agree with that?
I think so. One of the things that was really wonderful is that we have 2 gatherings every year, and we have artist Sid Rieger, who has designed banners, and they have the Venus of Willendorf and another goddess that I'm spacing out right at this moment.
Okay.
But they bring in those banners and they take this space, which is really a camp lodge, and turn it into a temple every year. There's a group of temple builders that come in, and by with the space of an afternoon, they turn this mundane space literally into a temple, with altars and and the decorations and everything there. And that's part of what sets up the sacred space for us, is that we have these visual images and these altars that are built that create that space. So when you walk into it, it's already there. It's not like walking into something that is just mundane.
Yeah, I think that's an important aspect. I mean, holding that space, and I think that in a way that's what we do as priestesses, whether we consider ourselves priestesses or not. We hold sacred space. We hold within ourselves that vessel that allows that creativity to spring forth, whether it's as poetry or as song or creating a school or creating something else. Whatever it may be, that we have that mindset in a way that we are the creative vessel from which things can flow. So I personally believe that without that, we become disconnected and experience that terrible experience that so many people are feeling these days, where they feel like there's nobody there that hears them, and there's nobody there that loves them. And I think one of the greatest things that the women's...
Women? Do you feel it's women who
I think that there's both women and men who get that way. I've dealt with many of them. And some of them become so disconnected that they're almost schizophrenic, and not that I would diagnose them as that, but it's that there's this separation, and they can't find a place for them. It's like, well, I know I can go and be the secretary here, but there's no place for me. There's a difference between who I am and what I do in some cases. And in some cases, the what I do is very, very dramatically separate from who I am. And when it's so dramatically separated, I think people have difficulty bringing the two of them together and feeling cohesive and coherent. And I think that part of the poetry that you write is offering people a vision that this is an opportunity to be more coherent, to be more cohesive, that experiences these words, experience this song, experience this magic. In a way, words are very much magic.
They are. I mean, the idea of magic is an incantation, and poetry is words. I think you're talking about a separation between the inner self and the societal self, that some people, maybe nowadays, there's less understanding of that difference, or less of we used to call it the counterculture, or maybe there's
we used to be the counterculture.
That's right. but the thing is, that has sort of gone underground, or is less accessible now somehow, and maybe some people don't realize where to look for it, and so there's this separation,
Yeah. There's one of our listeners who was a young woman who connected with me when I first announced this, who's in Western Australia, and she says, I don't know anybody like me. She says, my nearest neighbor is 15 miles away from me, and I don't like them. And
she's very isolated.
She's very isolated. She says, I read about this stuff on the internet, but I have no one to identify with. And, she's got children, and she's got a husband, and she's got, I don't know, sheep or something like that, or cattle or kangaroos or something they're raising. And, but it's like, there's nothing to tell me how to be what I seem to be. And I think that's part of the problem that women have. We don't have the role models. In other words, they're not on the front page of the People magazine.
Well, we used to, but not anymore. But I can recommend 2 magazines that I've been in, Sage Woman and Witches and Pagans, which might be a good way for her and other people who don't know about this to connect with others, at least in some way.
Yeah, I agree. I've taken Sage Woman for many years. So we're getting towards the end of this show, and I want to do something special here at the end. So is there anyone else who has a question before we go? Looking to see whether or not there's any questions over here. It's not. I'm ignoring you. I'm looking at the screen. So I would like to end this today by playing some music. Would that be all right, Jade?
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that would be awesome.
Yes.
What I'd like to play is Mother of the Ocean, if you don't mind.
Certainly.
Okay. So thank you so much for being here for the 5th edition of this show. And I would like to invite you to return, not on Friday. Friday we're doing July the 4th, and you can go do whatever it is you do on July the 4th. I'm personally going to close the doors and the windows and turn on the air conditioning. But on July the, let me make sure I've got it right. On July the 7th, we have Carmen Roman and Devora Grin, who are going to be here from San Francisco. And they're both equally brilliant, beautiful, incredible women. Carmen has just finished her PhD. Devora is in charge of a metaphysical spiritual institute in the San Francisco area. They're both in the education business. So they will be here Monday evening and at 6 o'clock. And I invite all of you to return and hear. And now I would like to play from the Triple Crescent, music celebrating the goddess, the group Triple Crescent, which has as lead vocalist Jade River.
I hear you calling, I hear you calling, I hear you calling me back home. I hear you calling, I hear you calling, I hear you calling me back home.
So one of the gifts that we are going to be able to give you is a track from that album called The Promise. And it is will be available a little bit later. I'm still working on the website, so excuse me. But I want to thank you for that. That's such a lovely song. And thank you for being here this evening again. And thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Without you, we would be very lonely. So please come back. And I will see you all on Monday night. Thank you, Vinay.